no doubt in my mind, had people done their job better in the last few years in relation to this man, those girls would still be alive.
You know, there are some things that don't particularly rub me the wrong way, but this entire situation is something that genuinely does.
This is one of the most horrific things I've ever seen and heard. That CCTV footage of the moments leading up to attack of Axel Rudikabana entering the building, of the moments during the attack, of it taking place, seeing those little girls flee from their attacker in the building, and seeing quite visceral images of them, some of them stumbling away from the building. We saw one particular child try to escape, and we saw Axel Rudikabana pull her back in, a child aged between 7 and 11, we know.
I distinctly remember when there was an entire news cycle that stated these key facts when reporting on this violent killing. The man was Christian, Welsh, and a choir boy. All of that is far from the truth. Outside of the obviously horrific crime that this man committed and was proud of, he had an Al-Qaeda training manual chilling in his room, along with other contraband and banned materials, which for some reason he wasn't arrested for. And even though he had the propensity for violence, as shown in the documents, him calling a helpline and asking what should he do if he stabs someone,
nothing happened.
He was reported multiple times and never arrested ever since 2019. He planned to murder willingly, and the UK politicians, knowing the extent of this blunder of a situation, chose to put a child photo instead of this photo.
This case is a sign. Britain now faces a new threat. In the past, the predominant threat was highly organised groups with clear political intent. But now, alongside that, we also see acts of extreme violence perpetrated by loners.
Incels. This was done by an incel. The UK, everybody.
Now, it may well be that people like this are harder to spot.
He was found with ricin, poison, in his possession. He was found with Al-Qaeda terrorist manuals in his possession. He'd previously been caught with a knife 9 or 10 times. He'd been reported to Terrorist Prevent at least 3 times and was still left to roam the streets to go on and murder innocent children. The headline is that within an hour of these things being found in his possession, which clearly indicates he's a terrorist, was reported to Keir Starmer. Because when an act of terror occurs, it has to be reported to the top, in case the country's in grave danger, in case there's a coordinated attack being planned. Starmer knew.
Chris Hope, TV News. Prime Minister, given what we know now about the terror link and how it's kept from the public, do you now regret blaming the far right for all those protests last summer? Was it a far right issue, or were some people entitled to be concerned and upset, not the rioters, of course?
Responsibility for the violence lies with them that perpetrated it.
He kept that information to himself. There was no way that information would jeopardise any trial. No one walks away scot-free from murdering children in broad daylight. Nobody. Instead, he portrayed to the public that he was a Christian Welsh choir boy. Couldn't be any further from the fucking truth. And then he took to punishing the public and the parents that smelt bullshit and took to the streets to protest and to their social media platforms. He sent them to jail knowing that he'd lied to them and essentially incited the riots himself.
I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, whether directly or those whipping up this action online and then running away themselves. This is not protest. It is organised, violent thuggery, and it has no place on our streets or online.
And it's funny how the Prime Minister responded saying how he supports the families and he's there for the families, yet jailed people for 20 months for retweeting the mass riots that happened because of this.
It is organised, violent thuggery.
And this utter sodomite has the audacity to say diversity is our strength while responding to a question about the 6, 7, and 9-year-olds that were brutally stabbed to death hundreds of times.
Diversity is a strength. It's not something that should be feared, and actually we need to unite more in the aftermath of it.
You can see why people acted the way they did in summer. You can see why all of this frustration has accumulated and it reached to this point. It's because these people don't care about you. The Prime Minister doesn't care about you. Because if he really cared, he would have voted yes to the public inquiry into the grooming gangs that they had to acknowledge in the UK. But because of democracy, they voted no.
So, I did a survey, and 106 people were surveyed, and the question was, should we have a national inquiry on grooming? Now, 85% or 90% of the people I surveyed were British Pakistanis, and overwhelmingly, we got 95% of these who said yes. The only people who are stopping this inquiry are Labour. I wonder why.
You are here to meet a 13-year-old child. Yeah?
Questionable, but expected. You know, at this point, I'll let you decide about that. But hearing this news, seeing his mugshot, and then having the news run with a story that he was a Christian man born in Britain, and in the trial he had a reduced sentence because of some mental claim, or at least attempted to reduce the sentence, and the fact that he said that he liked it, that he enjoyed the killing. He was glad that the children were dead. So by all means, 52 years isn't enough. He shouldn't be allowed to draw breath, because when you plunge a cold 20-centimeter blade into the body of a child 122 times, another 85 times, nearly decapitate the head of another, leading her to bleed out on the road looking for help, dragging other kids inside as they try to escape. The closest thing to hell on earth is the only experience you should have for the remainder of your life.
Elsie Stancombe was aged only 7 when Rudy Cabana inflicted at least 85 sharp force injuries to her head, face, neck, torso and upper limbs. Severe force was used to cause her death. B.B. King was aged only 6 when he inflicted at least 122 sharp force injuries to her head, face, neck, torso and upper limbs. It was the opinion of Dr. Seeker, the pathologist, that Rudy Cabana had tried to decapitate her. He concluded that severe force was used to kill her. Alice da Silva Aguiar was aged 9 when he stabbed her, including a chop wound to her head and 4 stab wounds to her back, causing substantial internal injury. Although she managed to escape out of the building, she collapsed, and despite all medical help, she died in hospital at 1:20 in the morning the following day.
Death should be all that awaits this man. The UK failed those little girls. And no amount of charlatan political drivel is going to change that fact. This man deserves nothing but death.